when they took him in the next morning to Indian Springs, which is the center of all the security, and took him out of the car with a gun in his ear, they said, "Now, Bob, when we gave you this clearance, it meant you were not supposed to tell all your friends about the flying saucers. Now, do you want to work here or not?" And that's when Bob was non-committal, because the last 2 flights he had taken up to Groom Lake, he could remember walking up the steps and walking down, but he couldn't remember anything in between, and he said he didn't want to work on a program like that.
Well, what about the tall whites? Because from what I understand, Charles Hall talks about the tall whites being out at Indian Wells, that area. You know anything about that?
Mm-mm.
Bob ever talk about the tall whites?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, only the grays, and they only had the 3 times. The once was when the pine-smelling fluid, and the once was seeing them in the room, and then once when George Knapp hired Tavernetti to come up and do the lie detector test. George rented a room at Caesar's Palace, and Bob and Gene Huff got there early, and they knew the room, and so they pulled the door open. And Gene pulled the door open, Bob looked inside, and he turned white and nearly fainted, and he walked over and he sat down in a chair, and Gene says, "What in the heck is the matter with you?" And Bob said, I just had a flashback. He said, "I remember talking with the gray." And what had happened is when they opened the door, the way that Tavernetti had said set up there, it wasn't very much light. It was one single table with a chair on one side and a chair on the other side and some equipment there. It triggered this reaction of Bob when he was reading the briefings and the gray was across from him. And it was such an overwhelming experience of when you first, are in the presence of a gray, when, you're used to asking a question and then having somebody respond, but when you're talking to an alien, they pick it up from your mind and they're answering before you can get out of your mouth, and it gets confusing. And it was just an overwhelming experience. So that was the other time that Bob had the...
Now, do you think he'll go on camera with this stuff?
I doubt it, but you never know what he's going to do. You never know what he's going to do. So let me look through here.